Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Question Time episode. God knows what already. Been a cracking day here weather-wise. I don't know what it's been like for everybody out there. Sun's been shining. Absolutely superb spring day, which is nice to see. Gets everybody in the mood. Fantastic. So long may it continue. Right, just a couple of things again. Just another prompt while I've got you all regarding Koi Talk magazine. This is issue 11, one of my favourite covers so far, to be honest with you. Absolutely stunning. Amazing Tancho show. Just looks the business. We've still got the free code. So if you use the code on the banner at the bottom of the screen, you're going to get yourself your first issue free of charge. And yeah, just remember, folks, it's £3.95 a month. Absolutely nothing for what's in it. Actually, this one's got an article I wrote. Absolutely stunning Umo shower. Honestly, this was one of the best fish I'd ever supplied up until that point. That one there got the full development history of actually getting all of it. It's a cracking piece. So all this sort of content in there for you to enjoy. Like I say, for £3.95 a month, well worth getting involved in. And I've also got one more for you all this evening. If I'm going to have to wind back for this one, but if you hit the share button on this video, I've got two 2022 Ikari calendars to give away, which are absolutely amazing. So at the end of the video, we're going to randomly pick any two people who's hit the share button on the video, and Steve will get in touch with you, and we're going to get one of them Ikari calendars posted out. They're absolutely amazing. So other than that, biggest sort of thing happening at the minute, my shipment from last week that I mentioned got delayed because of everything that's happening with Russia and Ukraine, and I'm closing the airspace. So it is causing a few problems out in the koi world. Nothing in comparison to obviously what the guys in Ukraine are going through. I mean, it's absolutely dreadful. But yeah, we've managed to find a different route, and we are going to get those fish in this week, but causing issues as it is everywhere. Like I say, nothing compared to them guys, but we will work through it, and just heaven forbid all this shit gets sorted out soon, to be honest. Other than that, Wakagoi Koi show is on just around the corner. We've got some stunning fish entered, some of my own personal fish and customers' collections as well. I'll be sharing some of them out on my social media pretty soon, but yeah, excited that we've got the chance to really win some top awards this year. I'm hoping so. Fingers crossed. Can never be too confident, because as good as you think you are and as good as you think the fish are entering into that show, you get the light and the Rita and other guys wading in. It could just tip things on its head. So there we are. So today we've got Matthew Howe back from Howie's Koi. Again, we're still finding that people are a bit shy coming forward. We've got a huge list of questions to work through, but personally I find this much more engaging when there's somebody there who can fire a bit of something back and make the conversation a bit more dynamic. So Matthew has been collecting questions off of his Facebook group, so it's actually all questions coming in from his members, so we'll do our best to work through them. So without further ado, let's bring Matt in. Hi, looking a bit fresher this time, Matt.
Yeah, I think the wife being here and taking some of the steam off of the build is made a lot of difference.
How I don't know if we mentioned last time. Well, I think we did, didn't we? Because you're in the process of building your new facility. How's it? I'm quite excited to see that it's nearly finished, because I've got a load of your fish that I'm desperate to ship.
I keep getting comments coming in from the customers saying, Ricky's going to be on your case. Ricky's going to be. He is on my case.
Are we all done now, though? I've seen some pictures. It's looking good.
It is. The roof's on, the electrics are in, and we're just starting.
Look at that. Awesome.
Just starting to fill up all the ponds, but as mentioned, like being on a borehole, it's slow. I've got to think about the neighbours, and I don't want to run them out of water. Maybe a problem in the future.
Fair play. But no, it looks amazing. Obviously, anybody wanting a bit. When's sort of like the grand opening?
I'm hoping that at the end of this week we'll start moving some of the fish back in. Yeah, probably Thursday, Friday, Saturday we'll bring them in. Make sure everything's all tickety-boo. Give you the nod to send on the fish.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I reckon realistically we'll be totally done and dusted in 2 weeks, which
fantastic.
Will be lovely considering we started the day after Boxing Day. Friend Glenn came in with the diggers.
Yeah, nice.
Digging and building, and yeah, it would be be nice to see the material list to see exactly what we used. You know, even down to the screws. Every time I go into town, it's like picking up handfuls of screws, and it's just like, where do we go?
I'm sure most of the audience can relate what it's like building one pond, never mind multiple and fish houses to suit. So yeah, it's
one thing I did learn from this job is the next time a customer asks me to price a job, it's only a normal pond. If they ask me to do something like this, there is no way that I'd ever want to price it.
No, fair play. Magic. So questions then, all from your group members.
Yeah, all from the group members. Some of them are really good, and some of them. But me personally, I think it's nice to have you there, Ricky. That we should all know the answers, but looking at the people that are just starting in this hobby, going all the way through, there's a lot of questions that we take for granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me go on to.
I think just while you say that's one of the biggest things for me is all people with more experience looking after the newbies as much as possible. With no intention but to help them succeed in the hobby, because it's hard enough to get people in, but then to see them leave, in a short space of time, that's not what we want as an industry.
No, and we got to bring more people into the industry. One of the things I mentioned 2 years ago, well, I know 3 years ago, at one of the shows was, that something like the shows that we do, the competitions, we ought to amalgamate them into the country shows where you've got tens of thousands of people coming along, and those people are captured. They're going to walk past the stores, they're going to see the fish, they're going to see the show fish, and we all started somewhere, buying from the garden centre, buying from, the UK breeders.
And at some
point or another, you only have a small proportion. I was saying to Steve just a minute ago, it'd be interesting to actually do a survey to find out how many people are on these forums that are just garden pond keepers with 1 or 2 koi in there, or how many of them are particular Japanese high-end koi enthusiasts. And, like we say, we all start somewhere, and we can try and capture that.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're all about helping them guys coming through for sure.
Definitely.
Magic. So first question then.
Right, potentially egg bound. And I've seen it lots and lots of times, photos of bloated fish, not raised scales, and everybody's comments are it's egg bound, or feed it some shelled peas and everything will be okay. From your experience, when you've seen this, what is the most likeliest cause of it?
Are we? Yeah. See, it's obviously always. I think the first gut reaction is to say that fish is egg bound, but not necessarily always the cause. And I think what we've also got to look at is that huge. We are talking about the huge gut underneath, aren't we? That seems to appear in female fish. Yeah. So say egg bound. I mean, it can just literally be carrying a lot of egg. There's a Kikuru line at Kaniko Koi Farm, which those things, it's literally in the breeding. It produces some stunning examples. We've got this short, stout body, and every female example gets this massive sort of rop of egg underneath, which it's not a problem. It's just not great. Obviously, in what we're looking for in body shape, it's not the ideal. The same kind of guts can be caused from bad feeding bad food. You can get that excess weight on to a really big degree as well. We're not just talking a little bit. It's the same as with humans. Bad fats and bad foods are just going to cling and sit there. And that can be as well, if you're feeding the wrong food at the wrong temperatures, i.e. if you're feeding a super high growth food when it's cool, the fats are just going to be stopping there. They're not actually going to be used. So they're going to sit in the wrong place. But yeah, the severe case of egg bound where they just fill up completely. Fish can live like that for absolutely years.
Yeah,
it's not always a massive health detriment. It can be. You can see it where it ends up putting pressure on the spine and bending the fish and things like that if you can't manage to get them out. But interestingly as well, them type of fish, obviously the more you spawn them, the more egg they tend to produce as well. When people do release it, you sort of start the cycle with it. So yeah.
Over the last probably 2 years, I've probably seen 3 or 4 different fish that have gone down with it, and every time on all of them, they've all succumbed to it, and it always been water retention through kidneys or liver failure. It's just when you read the forums, it's always everybody saying what they've heard, what they've been told. Egg bound. It's egg bound every single time, and I'd love to know, in your view, what sort of percentage you would perceive that it would be egg bound? Would you actually look at a fish and say that's egg bound?
It's not something I see commonly, to be honest. I mean, certainly around our, but we've not got as many big mature fish. But I think it's something that can be a lot more environmental, like say feeding related. Some fish, some lineages can produce that shape more, but he's always going to get the small percentages where it is that little bit more extreme, and that can be one of the issues with female fish as well.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously when you're feeding heavy, there's going to be a lot more egg production. Like I say, the more that you spawn the fish, the more egg that's likely to get produced if it is a fish that spawns. But not a massive common. I've seen it even years ago in past. This was a crazy one. It's when I was again at my dad's shop. We went out and it was pondside visit that we were doing, and it was a big ghost koi that just it had a massive buoyancy problem. And I believe at the time, and when we got to the bottom of it, they'd just constantly been feeding these fish bread. And this fish, literally, it was full of air. The only way I can describe it, we tried everything, looked at it. There was nothing solid there either, but the belly was all blown up and looked like it was egg bound. And in the end, it was just like looking at it absolutely perplexed, like what do we do? And we just thought, well, let's just try squeezing it. And as we squeezed it, the amount of air that come out of the vent was absolutely ridiculous. So, lots of causes. Again, because it's not something that's that common, it's not like I've been in depth with it and problems I've fixed. It's just different bits I've touched upon, but it can be one of them. Fish can live with it perfectly well, or it can be massively debilitating and end up, taking them out. But yeah, better answers. I'm going to write that one down because tomorrow I've actually got a guy, Jos Dirks from Holland, and he is a seriously shit hot fish vet. I've known him for a long time. He's worked at Takazumi. He was sort of like one of the founding guys there. And I mean, what this guy, they just seem to be on another level over there. The fish vet guys, so many of them, and seriously skilled. So we're actually going to sit down and do a podcast with him for Koi Talk. So I'll ask him. He's probably experienced it a lot more because no doubt he's calling out and having to treat stuff like that.
Definitely, that'll be an interesting response on that one. It's like I say, all of the occasions I've had in the past has always been a fluid and not egg bound at all.
Yes, yeah, correct. Well, that was again in this case. It was so. Yeah, interesting one. But I'll bring that up with him, and he could probably shed more light on that one.
Next question.
Yeah,
Bakki showers. I know you've got them there.
Yeah.
Why are they so good? And obviously with nitrates, they reduce nitrate level. What is actually going on in a Bakki shower that's actually going to improve the water clarity, water balance?
Yeah, I mean, I don't look at them for clarity. That's absolutely not something I'm looking for a shower for. So the reason, if we talk about, I've got trickle towers. The main systems that I run on the outdoor ponds, I class them as trickle towers. They're not running at any particular pace of water volume over there, just a little bit sort of, dribbling over the top. And it's the fact of they're even enclosed units, so they're not actually oxygenating water either. It's just, it was, to be honest, for the choice there was convenient because limited space. It made sense to go above pond and use that method. So the showers that I'm adding to the big growing ponds, I suppose purely the reason I'm going there again at the minute is it's more convenient because I'm retrofitting. I've got limited space. I'm having to go above, which is an obvious route. For me, it's an easy way of adding turnover. And the reason I'm only looking for extra turnover in there is because of my very high stocking and feeding levels. So it's not like, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be turning over masses of water, because I've already said in the past that's not the case. But if you're using shower format, again, I always separate the Bakki and the shower bit. It's a shower filter just in general. The Bakki bit does come from the term where, the Montero Bakki house media. Yeah. Again, I'm open to that. I'm not expert. I've not had it to join in on the debate of that one, or whether, what's the better media. All my sort of take on that side, to be honest with you, is I'm more into the concept of the shower than what goes in it. So when you're using a shower at the incredibly high flow rates that we see, I mean, Montero use some pumps that are feeding on 6-inch pipe over the showers. They're that big and it's running flat out. So what you're doing at that point is you're turning a lot of the water as it's hitting it and coming out the spray bar to vapor. And then obviously naturally ammonia and nitrogen, it's just gassing off. So that process to me is what I believe is doing actually a lot of the work before you actually get to the media.
So that's a good point there. So I got one particular customer, he's struggling with nitrite. He's been running since September. Yeah, September. He's heated, 18, and he cannot clear out his nitrite. He hasn't got no issues with overstocking. There's only a small number of fish in there, but he just can't get rid of it. You're saying then to put a Bakki shower in there would have a trickle tower will have a big impact on that.
What sort of nitrite readings he got?
0.25, and he's had it regularly all the way through.
I presume it's been higher.
It was right at the beginning, yeah, and then a lot of water changes, but now slowing up on the water changes. He's watching his food intake to the level that he's measuring out his food to the grams.
So give me interesting. Give me a bit more sort of a brief on that system.
He's running a filtration combi next, maximum amount of K1.
Being how much?
200 and... Is it 200? I think it's 200.
200 litres, yeah.
Then he's also running a skimmer that's going through the same system. And he's actually also, because he's asked a question here, let me find it.
Could just keep going with the pond details for me. What gallonage is it?
It will be 20,000 litres.
Just find my brains. There we go. Do you know what pump he's running on his main system?
He's got 220,000 litre pumps.
220,000s pulling through the combi?
Through the combi, but then they're slowed up and going through a Evo Aqua 24.
So do you know what they're slowed up to what degree? So he's pulling 40,000 litres through the main filter system.
No, he can't be, because it wouldn't take that. But the drum wouldn't actually take it. Forgetting the biological side of it, the drum wouldn't take it. I've got a feeling at the moment it's running a 20,000 litre pump going through the drum, and then the separate one going through the Evo Aqua 24.
Right, so that makes sense. So even there, straight away, and how many fish we talking?
A dozen fish, 2 fish at 24-inch, couple at...
Yeah, even still. So it's under absolutely. I mean, 20,000 litres. I mean, that's bigger than my big ponds where
it's way under. It's way understocked. Most of the fish in there are sort of 6 to 7-inch fish.
Yeah. Do you know what sort of maintenance regime is being done? Is in fresh water going in and stuff like that?
This is interesting because this is a question that he's asked. he's doing the maintenance regularly. And I did mention to him yesterday, are you actually doing it too often? That the filter, obviously, every time you clean it, knocks off some of the good bacteria, and you're almost starting all over again.
Just he shouldn't be doing. Obviously, he's got a combi. He's got a drum filter then with that. So yeah. I think there's two elements here. Looking at all this, the bit that's staring at me there is flow rate straight away, and this is a real problem. So I think all the elements going on as I'm seeing it there, we've got a system that is possibly the filters being put under no pressure. Now this is a real sort of flip it all on its head here, but biofilm ever only gets as strong as the stocking level and the fish weight and the feeding level. So I would potentially argue, obviously, one, the filter's not very old; it's still quite immature. So for one, it's likely over that period. When did you say? August last year?
September last year.
September. And is heated at what temperature?
18.
18, right. So it's not like he's gone all the way up to 24, 25, where that bacteria is going to be absolutely working flat out. So, but it's at a decent temperature to help bring it along. But ultimately, so it's still a very immature system. He's got it stabilized by the sounds of it. He's just got this trace nitrite problem. So I'd be looking at that and thinking two things. The counterintuitive thing there is to sort of back off, isn't it? So I've got a 0.25 nitrite. That's again, being frank, nitrite. We don't want long-term exposure, but it's not going to kill the fish outright anytime soon. But obviously, we do want to get the system functioning because it shouldn't be there at that stocking and feeding. So it could be that he's actually at a point where it would be more viable to introduce more fish or increase feeding to actually feed the filter more.
You
get me?
Totally.
And at the same time, from everything he's got going on there, so even he is obviously through the main system. If he's running them pumps flat out, he's turning the pond over at incredibly stupid rates. We've got a 20,000 litre pond with them two pumps running flat out, with head loss and stuff probably running between 35,000 litres, and he's only got 12 fish, probably feeding a minimal amount of food. You don't need to be passing through the filters that quickly. It's crazy, and certainly through the main system, this is where you're going to want his maximum retention time through the fluid bed. And then we've seen this with Nexus along the years. Yeah, they could take a higher flow, but I always believe they work better with a lower flow rate. So there's two things here, and it's always sort of balancing up then, getting the turnover you want, but then providing what's best for the filter and certainly for the biological filter. I mean, if we go years back when we've got multi-bays and things like that, retention time was a huge topic. Obviously, filtration's changed, K1, the fluid beds are more efficient, but ultimately, there's so little food there, you're going to want the contact time to get rid of it. So for me, I'd be turning all them pumps right now. He doesn't need to be putting any more than 10,000 litres an hour through that system, main filter system, with that current stocking density. And I seem to think in doing that and even turning the skimmer, what's the skimmer line actually feeding when it comes back?
It's not. It's just returning straight back in.
Just returning straight back in, right? So that's pretty irrelevant then. That line really, but on that main filter line, I'd be turning that down, so that's achieving no more than 10,000 litres an hour.
And I
seem to think
solely just because of the situation now, but then to increase it once stocking levels come up higher.
Yeah, I don't foresee. You bear in mind, right? So my 3.5K ponds right now, the one that's growing the Shinoda heel sorry that's been featured on my selection videos on the YouTube channel. Yeah, they are currently sat now at about 20 to 25 cm on average. There's a few bigger. There's 350 or just 330 something fish in that pond now at that size. It's incredible. The feeding is being increased weekly. It's through the roof. And that pond is turning over once every 2 hours.
Wow.
That's it. Single bottom drain, drum filter, fluid bed with 500 litres of K1, as opposed, but obviously he's got 200, and you consider the difference in stocking levels there. I've got 500 litres that's processing. I bet feed. I've not actually measured it out, but feeding's got to be getting close to a kilo a day going in there as it stands, and it needs more, and it's taking more, and that's how that's running.
So you say you got a drum on it. What else have you got going on? Obviously, the biological side of it. What have you got?
The drum and the fluid bed.
And that's it.
The UV into air pumps.
Wow.
This is exactly my whole thing of the keep it simple mantra.
Yeah.
That gets getting banged. You don't get any more simple. Those heat stories went in there. Please, guys, if you've not seen the videos, look them up on the YouTube channel. They went in there at 6 to 12 centimeters, and there was 1,000 at the time. Obviously, got the selection done. They were about 15 to 18 cm, I think, when they went back in after the selection, the 300 odd. And they're currently up to, like I say, 20 to 25, some breaching a bit bigger. A system does not get any simpler than that. And if you saw the water, everything, how it's looking, it's superb. And that's on a turnover of once every couple of hours at the most. So there, what is it, 3,500? Let me just flip that into litres. Yeah, so it's 16,000 litre pond, and we've got an Aquamax Eco 8,000 running on it. That's it.
That's impressive.
So yeah, so given that, I'm not going to have anybody sit there and tell. Obviously, the extremes here. It's just even that. It's not a complex system, but already super excessive. But the biggest thing over the years, working at the shop, I found day in day out. I mean, you'd often have people come. We was always very, when we're setting up a new system for somebody, always very key on balancing, making sure they've got the right pump size, because the natural thing is to go, or do I need a bigger one? Get the biggest one I can. That's all right with the filter, but not needed with the pump all the time. No harm in having loads of filtration, because most of the time with them sort of really basic systems, I'm talking box filters and pressurized filters and things like that here for startup ponds. But, even in this case, I think potentially to some extent for what he's got, he's over filtered massively. So that's why, I'd be looking to slow it down and probably increase the feeding and actually see where it ends up. If he's worried about the nitrite, in the meantime, get the salt sat at 0.3% and chill out.
Yeah, he's already got it at 0.3. So
yeah,
done that.
And then obviously be bare minimal with water changes. Just literally top up what that drum filter's discharging on a daily basis.
Thanks, Bakki.
That for me, I'd like to know. I'll get him to do it, please, and see. It's not going to happen overnight, and you still are dealing with the immaturity of the system. Absolutely no doubt in my mind there, but absolutely no way. I mean, when you compare that to how I'm running my ponds, it's just night and day.
But as well, right at the beginning, about probably 6 weeks into it, obviously when the spike came, I gave him some of my K1 media that was running in one of my fish houses, because all the fish were from my place anyway, so it was pretty safe from the side of it. And that didn't help at all. And going by what you just said, that would explain it, because obviously the bacteria that was on my media probably wasn't getting enough food to survive, and has just basically dropped back.
We forget, obviously, it's the ammonia is the filter's food. But this is why obviously we can't just go from systems find such a balance. It's why when I'm feeding heavy, I can't just go from the heel sore is prime example right now. I pretty much need to double, because I'm wanting a 10-minute feeding window in that pond, and I can't get. They're still consuming the food in a minute. It's absolutely they're ravenous, but I cannot just jump and double the feeding, because I will cause a problem within 2 or 3 days. It'll be all right for the first probably 24, 48 hours, then bump, it'll hit, because that's when things will have built up and the system's got to adapt. It will adapt to it. I just don't want to do it that way. So that's why it's slowly keep raising it up. Mm-hmm. But the filter's strong. I'm making that 500 litres work hard.
To mature your filters, obviously, I guess you're moving media around from one place to another when you have to anyway. But if you needed to start a new filter off, what stuff would you recommend that you've seen does the job?
This is, and I want to be really careful when I'm doing this, because obviously this is from a professional perspective of having done it for so long. But always the best way is to seed it off. You need ammonia in the system. That's it. The ammonia is what feeds it. So you need that. It's just a case of, to be honest with you, for me personally, starting a pond up, you can do it really, really quickly, sort of on a shock loading basis, get the fish in there, because the spikes are always going to come. What I've seen is the sort of slow approach that a lot of hobbyists do take through caution, which is nothing wrong with. And I've seen this happen so many times. You start a new pond, you add a few fish, you get a little spike, you deal with it, or maybe you get nothing for a while because the pond hasn't even felt the loading that you've put into it. And then all of a sudden, at some point, the big MPS strikes, the new pond syndrome thing. It's going to come.
Yeah,
it's going to. You're never avoiding it. It's going to come, and for me, you want it to come, as hard as possible, really, because if you only get a little spike and wave it off, at some point, you're just going to keep getting the bigger one and the bigger one again.
You can settle an argument for me as well, Ricky. So somebody has set up a new pond. Yeah. He's ordered some fish up, but he hasn't got the fish. But he wants to get his filters maturing, started. Yeah. Can you answer the question? If he went and peed in the pond, the ammonia that he's peeing in the pond is exactly the same as what a fish creates, you're actually starting your filtration.
I'm not even going to entertain that, Matt. Wow. I've heard it all over years. Sausages. Some aquatic outlet round by my dad had told him to put sausages in the pond, sausages to mature it up. Honest to God, this is no thing that you guys, anybody starting out's got to tread with caution because they don't want to get things to get out of hand. I've always, for starting new systems up, we generally get the system running, get a good loading of fish in there, start feeding them. But what I'm doing at this point is, I've got the experience in handling the water when it goes wrong and getting it right. And I'm using heat. I'm 24, 25, so I'm cycling the filter really quickly. You'd be amazed how quickly you can pull that spike back up and down and build real strength into a system really quickly. But what we've also got to bear in mind here is we're not just maturing a filter system. We're actually waiting for an ecosystem to build, because you cannot underestimate the amount of biofilm and what part that plays on your pond walls, on the internals of your pipe work, everywhere in the entire system. It's not just about that biological chamber of your filter. It's everything. It plays a huge part in keeping the stability there, and that's the bit you lack initially, and you can't recreate it. You can't. You can chuck bacterial problems in to deal with the parameters at that point and help it out, but you don't get that maturity. You just get that over time.
That's an interesting one. So somebody set up their pond at the end of last year.
Yeah.
When the autumn came, they chucked in a load of the balls, the temperature balls, or not temperature balls, but the plastic balls to insulate the pond.
Yeah.
Then they potentially in the spring, they're going to be taking away those balls.
Yeah.
What's going to happen to the ammonia nitrite? My theory is that obviously, potentially, you could have a spike because you're taking out some of your biofilm that's around the pond.
You mean a little bit on the balls?
On the balls.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't foresee that being a big issue, to be honest. It's probably going to get the spike coming anyway, with it being a new pond and just that process and that time of year. But yeah, I don't foresee that. There'll be some marginal gain in there, but not compared to what's going to be sat, on the pond itself and in the pipe work and everything else and the main filter. So yeah, I don't foresee that being a problem. But I think people do underestimate in general the importance of, the pond environment itself and that actual ecosystem making it good water for the fish to live in. Fresh water out the tap, even through a purifier, it's very raw. The whole environment's very raw. So that's the bit to sort of, add caution to, slowly build it up, let the environment build as well. You talk about bacteria products again, PSB bacteria, the Colombo, the Bakki Plus product, made by Colombo. Do love that stuff. Very effective at shifting ammonia.
Is that the one that absolutely
stinks? The red one that smells like, it's like a bottle of silage. It's vile, but it's super fresh. You actually get it at certain times of the year because they don't manufacture it. It's just not the one. Not the one to be had in winter because it's ineffective as well. It's temperature sensitive. But yeah, to be using that stuff shifts ammonia well, and it's just a good bacteria. It's photosynthetic. It's a cleaning bacteria, so it's sort of good for eating organics in the water as well. A good all-round product. And then, to be honest, the filter gels are the only other ones I've ever had really anything good to say about. Factor Plus again was one of the originals, and that's back on the market these days. And the EA filter gel, I believe, is very closely related to that as well. Really great products for helping seed a system up in the early days and just keep things in check. And certainly the ones I've used in the past.
You read a lot on the forums where different people are using it at the beginning of the spring, putting it into the filtration to, I guess, give it a kickstart. Would you see that as a benefit? Well, it's going to benefit it, but necessary?
So long as it's not too cold. Because that's fair. It's still what you're trying to do. Obviously, if it's certain temperatures, the bacteria is going to still be pretty dormant.
Yeah.
So you'd be chucking that in there, and that's probably going to be as dormant as the filter itself. So just got to get it, right time of year. Make sure it's working in the right temperature range. But just more than anything, try and avoid the spikes to begin with. Be very cautious with the food. It's very easy. Like today, I'm quite sure, in areas where that sun's been shining, it's been quite a nice day. Fish might have come up from bottom and been circling around top looking for a bit more food than usual. And it's quite easy on them weekend days when that happens to go a bit, slap happy with the food and take it way beyond what the system's used to. And all of a sudden, 2 or 3 days later, you've got the problem coming. Temperatures dip back off again because it's not holding at night time, and you're not going to clear that off too easily.
Yeah.
So always just tread with caution.
This one
got quite a good one there, Matt, didn't we?
We did. This one here is quite funny, actually. I chuckled when I saw it. Why do you not sell long fin koi?
I do.
Okay, so when do you sell them?
I believe it or not, right? And this is obviously, I am a purist at heart, but I appreciate koi on absolutely all levels. It's not snobbery from me. I appreciate things when they're done well. Any variety, anything like that. I can't say there's a variety I don't like. Often I've seen top examples of most. Long fins, yes, they're a tricky one. I'm not going to say yes, they're my absolute favourite. They do look relatively nice. There's only certain, you've got to get them right. Suda is the one. He's a true specialist in the long fin. And honestly, when you see them, admittedly, they're not my favourite, but you do have to appreciate the work that's gone into, the level of varieties he does as a long fin mix. And the quality of the fins, because this is where they really lose it. You see them really raggedy big messes, and when they get bigger, that is when that generally seems to happen more, and they do look a bit unsightly, in my opinion. But when they're smaller, they can look quite tidy and nice. And obviously, ultimately, I'm running a business, and it's something people do want a lot of. And even if we look worldwide, Suda. Last year, when I tried to get them, I only managed to get hold of 800, I think it was, which sold out, pre-sold within 2 weeks of them arriving. They were absolutely crazy. And I couldn't get any more. Suda himself that year, I think he'd shipped 10,000 out to Asia, from what I was told. Just crazy, crazy numbers, but been a bit harsher this year. And actually on the shipment on Friday, I think there's 2,150 of them coming. So we'll have a few more for people this year. But yeah, for me, if that's the koi people enjoy and it brings them joy, then happy days. Because that's what it's all about. Shouldn't be dismissed. Just because it's not someone's preference, it is actually a lot of people's preference. And if that's what they enjoy, then yeah, fair play.
We've all got articles. It's like the Zeus, wasn't it, the other day? Was it the Zeus?
Black Zeus, yeah.
To me, that is not my cup of tea, but you love it.
Yeah, and this is again, but I'm appreciating what's being done at that point. Instantly you're looking at, obviously Comonria in themselves are hard enough to produce, and Comonria with the sort of bone structure I'm seeing in the Black Zeus already, I'm thinking, wow, this could be impressive. There could be some real size element to these, and knowing Dainichi size will be the main sort of thing in their head, size and body. So I should imagine that's played a big part in the parent fish selection. And then the added element of the Ginrin on top as well. Holy shit. And it's, again, they're not quite there yet. This can be the thing with a lot of toe sign varieties, but in my head, I'm sort of painting a picture of these at potentially 70 cm with this huge, fierce body. And yeah, could look quite impressive. Likewise, they could absolutely look dreadful in 6 months' time, and I'll be slagging them off to the max. But I like to give things a try, give them a shot. There's potential in it, and it will be a game changer. There's a lot of varieties like that. Let's face it, Karashigoi don't look all that exciting when they're 20 cm, but when they start hitting 60, 70, 80, 90 and a meter, all of a sudden they get people's attention.
Definitely.
So, yeah, always like to keep an open mind with all that. It's important, especially on our side of the fence as dealers as well. Preferences, personal preferences really do have to get shoved to one side, because it's our job to sort of know everything and guide people in the right direction.
Yeah, well, I've had fish that have been sat in some of my tanks for months and months and months, and it's like, I'm just going to have to. I got a fudgy pond, I call it, down at the farm, and anything that I don't particularly like, or has been sat around, or has lost all its colour, I can take it down into it's a great big lake and dump them on in there, and they're quite happy. And then you've had somebody turn up and go, "Oh my God, that's just the fish I've been looking for." And it is. Everybody's got a different choice of what they like and what they don't.
Yeah, it is, and I don't think anybody should be scrutinised for having that's not not everybody else's cup of tea or something like that. Again, it's about what people enjoy in the hobby.
Yeah, definitely. One of the other questions: preparation for moving the koi. So, can you run through what they do in Japan in readiness to move the fish, and then what you do to move on to the dealer?
Yeah, what we took. So this is preparation for packing. Yeah. So obviously we've got to take certain things into perspective here. Obviously from Japan to me, huge distance time. We can be 40 to 48 hours by the time they're actually unpacked. From me to you, we're talking probably 24 tops, and that was using overnight, which we don't do anymore. So we're all with our own drivers. So we're literally generally, just 3 or 4 hours now, maybe 5 or 6 tops if we're on a long run. Preparation. Biggest thing is starvation. This is absolutely paramount, because obviously the minute they're packed, they start stressing. They're going to be pumping out ammonia from the stress anyway. And if they've got a full gut, that is going to be amplified massively. And they're just going to be dumping it all into a very small amount of water. That ammonia level is going to surge massively in a very short space of time. And ammonia burns. The minute it's there, it's burning and doing damage. And if that's the case, if they're prepped badly in Japan, I'll always know every so often it happens, not very frequently. A batch comes in and there is major problems. I know the prep's not been done properly. No argument about it. Prep's not been done properly, and it's a fault from the breeder end generally. But yeah, so in Japan, generally fish will be caught up sort of a week before. They'll either be isolated in a holding net or a clean tank, something like that, where they can't eat algae as well. So obviously, algae pollutant from that isn't as bad as from food, but it's still not ideal. So we want to try and avoid it. So yeah, completely clear the gut out. Fresh water is generally prepared for the shipment, which will be brought up to a fair temperature, because again, it's important we don't pack too hot. If we pack too hot, again, you're going to exhaust the fish pretty quickly. So you keep them as cool as you can before the shipment, which isn't always that easy. But we don't. This is why summer shipping up until the polystyrene boxes, that sort of process that I was heavily involved in at the beginning. Summer shipping was a no-go, because not only did they start too hot, couldn't control the temperature then when they were sat on the tarmac and things like that. Yeah. Before you know it, the fish are already on the last legs before they've got in the aeroplane. So temperature control. Normally breeders will prep to, when they can control it, prep to about 15, 16 degrees for the packing water. Generally salt up to about 0.3%. And then, just on shipment night, get the water right. The owl fish is used on the top of the bag to control the gases and everything in there, keep the water a bit fresher. And happy days. They're packed and sent.
So, sorry, how long did you say they will starve for before they come?
There needs to be about a week, 7
week.
days.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big journey. And obviously bearing in mind at that point, we're talking, so if we use like a 12 to 15 centimeter koi as an example, on average from Japan, we're packing 70 of them in a box. So when I'm sending out, we'll generally pack an absolute maximum of 50, but generally on average 30 to 35. So because obviously it's just simple logistics, air freight, especially at the minute, the price of it is just soaring constantly. But it's always been a thing. We have to weigh up, the cost. So we need to maximise the space that we've got.
Can you see a big change coming, obviously, because of all the issues that are going on at the moment with the utility bills going up, costs of air freight? Can you see that the hobby is going to be impacted this year from it all? Are you taking any precautions or considerations in what you stock?
No, I'm always sort of one of the, I don't try and let that kind of stuff, obviously I've got to be aware of it. We're looking at certain costs, obviously oil already from this year to last year's gone up, but I'm pretty much just in life, so it is what it is. We can't, these are bigger things, we can't control them. We've just got to deal with it within the realms of what we can do.
Yeah.
So the air freight thing, yeah, admittedly, when you actually break the increase in air freight down to, somebody out there buying a fish, that 1 or 2 fish they buy a year, it's such a negligible difference, they're not going to notice. When you do notice is when I've got a 4-ton shipment sat waiting to come in, and that air freight per kilo has had a bit of a bump from obviously a cash perspective. That's then a massive thing that has got to be dealt with up front. So yeah, when you multiply it up like that, you look at it and think, shit, that's ridiculous. But when you actually then break it down to your customers and the fish they buy each year, it really is negligible. Then just coming back to the running cost thing again, I know it's been spoke of. Me and Chris have spoke about this a few times as well with the Koi Talk stuff. Just when you consider what I've just said there, and coming back to the conversation about your customer's pond, there's 2 20,000 litre pumps burning there, when that whole system realistically could be done with, a tiny little pump on the skimmer, like a 3.5, 5,500, something like that. On the very flow pumps.
Yep, they are.
Yeah, but but even at that, they can be cranked right down because it's just not necessary how it's running. So there's wattage burning there for absolutely no benefit. When you consider what I've just, that system of mine, take away the heating element, how it's actually running. There's an Acromax Eco 8,500, whatever it is, 2 EAF pumps, a 130 and a 150, and a 55 watt UV. And obviously the cleaning pump on the drum, which is intermittent. When you actually add the wattage up there, it's a crazy low amount. Crazy low. So again, yes, rising energy is going to impact households for sure, but does it actually impact the price of running a pond that much? If you've got it set up, the increase should be negligible. If you've got excessive amounts and crazy pumps running, that's been the biggest thing. The pumps I've stuck on the showers just of late are actually churning more electricity at the rates I'm running them than the whole system itself as it was set up before. But I'm seeing them as a necessity to punch through some of the sort of barriers and limitations on the system last year when it got to certain points. But I just don't see those limitations being the same for most hobbyists out there.
Well, sorry about that. That'd be my dog. The kissing or mouthing of koi when you feed the fish. You see the fish come up and their mouth.
Yeah.
In the old place, I had 2 tanks and they were continuously doing it, mouthing, presuming to get the food from the other one. But then I've got English reared carp as well, koi.
Yeah.
They never ever do it. I've never ever seen any of my English do it. It is only the Japanese. Is there any connection to the feeding regime that they've gone under, the starvation moving or anything like that?
Absolutely no idea, Matt. That's one of life's great mysteries for me, that one.
So do you see it a lot with your fish? Being the
No,
Japanese,
not necessarily. Just the odd ones every now and again, but no, nothing too major
it's
whatsoever.
almost, yeah, in the old ponds, it was almost, I could have walked up to them, chucked some food in, I could guarantee you within seconds
Yeah,
they would be mouthing, but then go into other tanks and
really.
they wouldn't do it at all. And
Yeah,
I always put it down to starvation at some point or another, and they've educated themselves or taught themselves.
Yeah. They are. I've actually seen fish sort of doing it outside of feeding in the past as well, though. But I feel like that's one for people with letters next to their name to sort of answer. To be honest, if there's a reason beyond it just being them being a bit overzealous when they're feeding. To be honest,
I just wonder whether the Japanese were more affectionate than the English.
I doubt it. But yeah, on that actually, an interesting point. Obviously, I've rambled on in the past about in a lot of my videos about the size differential in mixed ponds and how that changes the feeding behaviour. And just coming back, I've filmed a video of it, which I'll post when I get round to it. But the Heotsoras I mentioned earlier, the Shinoda ones. So the average size of the pack at the minute, if you like, is the 20 to 25. But there were some smaller fish I let back in at the time because I had nowhere else to put them. So I thought, let's just see if they can put a bit of size on. They have put a bit on. This fascinating behaviour. There's about 8 fish in there, and they constantly live in one corner of the pond, and very barely do they move from it. I was literally filming it. I was at one end of the pond, I recorded, and I went up to the other end. I fed the fish. The whole pack was there, feeding, going mental. I went back. Only a couple of the fish had left there and gone elsewhere. All the rest were still pinned in the corner. So they are clearly just feeding off of scraps, algae bits, anything they can sort of get up that end of the pond. And it was just the prime example of why I stress so much about that.
There was one that you posted the other evening that was, I'm sure it's your Heotsuris, and you had 3 or 4 saggies in there.
The slow-mo one. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could almost see that they were coming up, the saggies were, and all of the others were dropping down to allow them to feed. And as the saggies went out of a screenshot, they were coming back up again to feed. So you can definitely tell the difference between the size.
They're crazy, but that in that environment, you see, there's obviously those little fish I'm talking about, obviously isolated, would have definitely been done better. They're absolutely scared to death where they are. So obviously they've been taken out now because it's just not doing them any good. But yeah, massive impact. So you can sort of see why, taking that right back to when I was first exposed to it in the breeders' mud ponds, why they're so keen to remove these bigger dominant fish out of there, because certainly at them sizes, it's no good for them. Mm-hmm. It's not. Still got more?
There's loads there, mate. If you need me to stand in again, just give me a shout, because they just keep listening. I feel like I need to set up a Facebook page just to, I don't know why they're picking on me, but I'm the only stupid one to ask the questions.
Brilliant. Just remember, folks, it's on the bottom, but if you want the chance to win one of these Hikari calendars, which are pretty awesome, hit that share button, and we're going to randomly pick 2 people from that list to get one of them calendars out to. Cool, go on then, Matt.
How often do you test your water? On an established pond, how often would you expect a normal customer to test their water?
Okay, this for me comes down to experience. So it depends how good you are at reading the environment. So I think it's better to be proactive when you've got less experience, and to be honest with you, it can be a little bit more reactive as you sort of get more experience and you learn to sort of read the environment that's going on. Now, very quickly, we can look at a pond and get a gist for what's happened by what's happening in the water, how the water smells, every sort of thing like that. It's all very subconscious from years and years and years of experience. But I don't think that's we're talking 2 decades there of doing this on a serious level. For the one point, I do believe it's better to be, like I say, proactive. Probably just a test once a week. Doesn't need to be any more than that, just to see where the water's going. Unless you're at a point where there is a problem, you probably want to be a little bit more frequently, just to monitor it and see where it's at. But nothing's going to change overnight. You know, the one we do constantly, KH. We're absolutely all over KH, because for me, it's probably one of the most single important ones, because it is the glue of the whole system as far as I'm concerned. You know, not only are you keeping pH in check, one of the parameters that can do serious damage in a very short space of time if you get it wrong. You know, a pH crash will have fatal consequences if it's on a big enough scale. So KH is absolutely essential for keeping pH in check. For those watching that don't know, it's basically like an acid mop. So the KH is just soaking all that free acid up in the water before it gets to the pH and has a chance to muck around with it. But then also it's required for the biological filter performance. So, and we've seen it constantly in systems, you know, when you're running a consistent sort of 2 and above, 2 is the sort of base level for me. So ideally a 3 and above, you'll keep everything sort of ticking over nicely and real steady. But if you then drop below that, very quickly, you'll see nitrite starting to come up. And if the KH zeroes out very quickly, you'll get ammonia spikes as well. So that for me is the one, when you look at the complexity of issues it can cause, it's the one we want to keep on. And
you're on mains there as well, aren't you, Ricky?
Mains water, yeah.
Yeah, I remember asking you when I came up last.
Yeah. But so yeah, definitely worth anybody, if you know you've not got that confidence to be able to read the environment and know what's going off and see a problem coming before it becomes major. Proactive water testing, but once a week. I don't see you needing to do it any more than that, and just do it with the standard liquid tests. You know, more than good enough. NT Labs, Colombo have been great over the years, M1s, and it's more than enough than you need to see. You just don't need these digital readouts. pH can be a bit better, you know. To be honest, with the digital ones and the pH pens and stuff like that, as long as they're calibrated, you can get a lot more accurate reading. Because I've found the colour ones of them pain in the arse over years. But yeah. Other than that, you know, it's only that pH salt with the digital meters, and the rest for me, the liquid test is more than enough.
Okay. This question feels as if there's something hidden behind it. Koi shows.
Yeah.
How long do you have to own the fish before you can show it?
No idea.
Just
please, that's one for the BKKS slot. I don't know, is that information on their website? I should hope to think it is, but no.
I don't know. The question was there, and I didn't know whether there was any timing on it or not.
No, I've never looked that far into it. I've no idea, but in my opinion, stuff like that, it shouldn't matter in the slightest. It shouldn't matter where it's come from. If it's a dealer entering it into the show, you know, it's obviously that hobbyist fish that's residing at a dealer. None of that should matter so long as the person owns the fish.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Bleeding gills. Every time somebody's caught the fish, the gills break out. Well, obviously, burst the vessels and bleed.
Yeah.
Return to water, carries on bleeding, and then heals or stops and carries on.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. What's the cause of it?
No, it's just a change in pressure with some fish, just too quickly. Up, boom, the stress factor of it, and away we go. Very few fish, every now and again, pain in the arse. I still don't like seeing it now when it happens, to be honest with you, because it's a hideous thing to watch. But I've not seen a koi go down from it yet, to be honest. But yeah, painstaking to watch it, because especially when it doesn't seem to be stopping up, it looks like they're about to bleed out. But yeah, just that you know, the stress, fast changing pressure, because obviously you're switching the immune system on really quickly. Great article to read on that. Actually, I can't remember which issue it was of Koi Talk, but we had Adrian Love from Sparsholt College wrote something about stress in koi, and that article was absolutely superb. Covered a few elements around that and the catching processes and everything. So yeah, well worth a look. I'm just trying to think where we could possibly get some information to people on that one, but yeah, that's it. Just why it's always important, you know, not to go chasing fish too much when you're catching them slowly, but some you won't avoid. Big fish seem to be a bit worse, or a lot worse than the smaller ones as well. But just, you've got to be super steady at all times.
Okay. Just looking at the time for a short one. What's your dearest fish, Ricky, that you've had go totally tits up, lost all its colour, totally and utterly failed you?
Oh, God Almighty! I don't really want to think about this, Matt. To be honest. Yeah, you've got me now.
What would be if you were going to expect a fish to go tits up? What would you expect it to be? What variety?
Variety-wise, could be any.
So you don't see...
The toe size is the biggest jump. To be honest, if you actually, the one fresh in my memory, it's just come to me, and it's not really gone tits up, just not gone to plan. So I bought a Dainichi Tancho from the auction, the very last one last year. Toe size was Sextus female from the new Mihara X lineage, which the Mihara lineage was absolutely stunning. And speaking of Tanchos, I mean, this is the sort of inspiration we're talking about. Let me just get it. So I've seen this fish in the flesh swimming around at Dainichi. Absolutely out of this world. We're talking, I believe that was in the 90 boo division when I last checked. So no doubt somewhere between 90 and a metre if it's still there, but it certainly looked like it was rocking on for it. The sheer presence was just phenomenal. And I saw this Tantra, it was just so good. It was from the lineage I knew could do it. And I thought, that's a bit of me, that. And just the dream, the sort of vision of having this Tancho growing on with that level of spot that it had. It was slightly, it weren't too small. It was at the point where even with a bit of contraction of the belly, it could really deliver. So obviously to reach them kind of real extreme sizes with Tancho, I wanted it to be female. And so got it. Absolutely went toe to toe in this auction, and I did pay a fortune. I'm not even going to go into it because it's too embarrassing, to be honest. Got all of it, grew it on there for the summer, and came out, did well. It was looking good. The Benny on the spot had moved a little bit too much. It contracted, and it sort of the full round circle had a tiny sort of like moon bit digging in on one side, but looking good, body great, but it was male. So that instantly there ends the dream, because male, again, with Tanchos, it's not one of the best traits to be had, because obviously the white skin's so much, a lot like with Shira Utsoris. And it's just not something that I've been prepared to keep at the farm any longer. So that was game over and killed that dream, to be honest.
So that went out on a clearance still, did it?
No, it's swimming around at the fish house now. It come back earlier this year. I'm going to push it on again this year, because I've got the pond where I'm going to be raising the males, including some of my Dainichi fish from last year. So it's a fierce fish, great, and the body's still all there. It looks great, but it had to come home. And that's that one. Doesn't always go to plan, unfortunately. And even with the breeders sexing fish, it highlights there. There's non-guaranteed for, but even when they're guaranteeing female, you're not guaranteed for that fish to come out. All it is you've got some protection from the premium that you're paying for it. If it goes wrong, that it'll get swapped out, or there's some terms there to sort of compensate you for it. But it's the risk I took. If it had all gone to plan, happy days. But it doesn't always go to plan. They're coy, and it happened many a times over the years. Tosai are always the hardest. I remember a customer's Sankey, and it looked absolutely, and I mean everything. There was nothing as Tosai that concerned me as it grew was going to be a problem, and it come out the mud pond as a Becco. Absolutely gone. Every shred of colour, absolutely gone.
Wow.
And there was nothing. Honestly, it's with experience again. I'm pretty good at reading the colour and where it's going to head and what to avoid. Nothing there, Ristman. Obviously, that was a horrible situation, because I'd sold it to. It was obviously a private client, sold through one of my dealers on a trip, and obviously we're all there. Me hyping it up because I saw it, the potential, the breeder as well, everyone involved, and then bang, gets harvested, and there's nothing left. So that's, yeah, ones like that are hard to swallow. But again, it's not all the time. And then, yeah, we talk just, this year, I mean, the guys at NND do a stellar job of looking after fishing mud ponds, more care than I've seen taken by anybody. Protective netting around the outside, across the top, absolutely every precaution. And I think it was three jumbo towside there, quite considerable sort of value of fish. We're talking, £4,000 to £5,000 a piece on the market. And we had 3 results. One fish didn't get harvested, just vanished, which can happen in mud ponds. It's the reality. No matter what care they've taken, that vanished. The Sankey that I bought that was absolutely, again, besotted with, had this vision of this fish, the 80, 90 cm potential, because the fish had it, the lineage had it, got harvested, looks incredible, but that was a guaranteed female that turned out to be male. So again, still got that, still in Japan, and it's going to stay there because it's a serious fish. But here's what it is. And then the third one was actually an absolutely worldy of a result. This marathon shower that I've got, which, yeah, I can see that going all the way to the 75 cm plus, and is going to look out of this world. So for me personally, that's enough of a result. I was compensated, part of the value for the one male female, because I wanted to keep the fish, otherwise they'd have just replaced it and whole. I was compensated for the one that was lost because it had a life guarantee. So no issues. But for me, that wasn't the point. I had this dream and this vision of this Sankey becoming this phenomenal thing, which it is still going to be an amazing fish. But yeah, the female aspect, is it going to quite do all the size potential? They're a bit of a nightmare at breeders because they've not always got the space to be keeping males for that long. So will it come home? Possibly. And yeah, the shower that got lost, I mean, I was excited. It's that potential, the dream of seeing it, and it's lost.
Just reading a message. Can you explain why the males and the females, why you make a decision to keep them there or bring them home?
Yeah, a lot of the time it's because of the raising facilities. Breeders aren't keeping because of, obviously, still we're at a point where a lot of Niigata breeders, male fish aren't getting the value. They will not raise, obviously, male fish. So we're talking, Nisai and older. So Nisai growing to Sanzai, they will not mix male and female in a mud pond because you've got potential, spawning disasters going on. I've been there when that's happened. I was at NND one summer. We're out in the mud pond complex, and holy shit, there's a load of fry feeding at the surface of the pond. Now, this was I think the pond was about 3 meters deep, 3 to 4 meters. It was a huge one. And they were just, honestly, it boxed their heads in because they know that's pretty much destroyed the growing season for them fish. So it's like, where do we go? Because the draining off, the netting, there was no way they were going to get it refilled. Job done. You've got all the fish, all these fry in there, consuming all the natural resources, and that's just because somewhere along the line they'd messed up sexing one of the fish, and it turned out to be party time. So yeah, they're not. This is it. It just comes down to resources. So at the minute they've not quite got or given the resources to male fish the same. So Tosai to Nisai, it's all right. We're finding more and more Nisai to Sanzai, that's okay. But beyond that, them actually having space dedicated, they're generally only keeping male fish in mud ponds where it's actually parent fish. And they're not going to want to give that space up raising customers' fish. So until more demand grows for it, at that point, they'll probably dedicate more resources to it. Bigger farms, it's happening more. Taniguchis, Sakai's, Momoteros, all that. Male fish has been a big thing there for a long time now. So they are giving up more and more resources for pushing them fish through. And at dealers like Narita and Odakan, they're doing a lot of that raising indoors. So they don't really discriminate male, female so much. But yeah, breeders with mud ponds, they have to think about all this stuff, and resources are stretched, and there's just not enough male fish to warrant the resources at the minute. Pretty much. Hope that answers that one.
It does.
Cool. We've chewed up some time there, Matt, haven't we? I've not really had a chance to go through many of the questions on here tonight, chaps, unfortunately, but as ever, we will keep a record of them, and at some point, it will start touching base on them. But thank you for everyone who has commented, and yeah, we'll have a look. We'll draw the calendar out, and I'll post a video out tomorrow to let you know who's been the winner of that, and then yeah, we'll get in touch and get them sent out. So perfect. Thanks for your time, Matt.
No worries. I'll be in touch early part of next week.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Good stuff. And yeah, thank you to everyone else once again. I'll be back next week, and yeah, see what else we're bringing. Viewer numbers have been absolutely fantastic this week, so thank you for that. I hope everybody's still finding it useful and engaging. And just one more plea out there, like I said, we're happy just to run through and have your questions coming in. It's fantastic, but as you've seen, it's really nice to get a two-way conversation going and see how things unfold. And I believe that kind of environment can open up a greater conversation that all you guys can learn a lot more from. So please, it's not all that scary. Get in touch with us to get yourself on here, and yeah, let's have a great conversation. So thank you once again, and I'll be back next week.